Classroom of the Elite Year 2 Volume 8. Pseudo got rejected. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know, Pseudo confessing to Horikita was leaked really early on, and many people were speculating if he would get rejected or all the character development buffs would play into Pseudo's a game, and he will get the bae. Unfortunately, that did not seem to be the case. And you know what, personally, I was kinda sorta hoping to see something in that direction. Not cause I actually ship them, although my boy Pseudo definitely deserves a W, but rather because I think if that development would occur, it would really change the scene of anime high school couple pairing. Cause, in normal Japanese high school anime do you see an actual delinquent looking dude get any girl, much less the main girl? That only happens in some other unspoken Japanese animated series. If a surprising development like that does happen in this sort of, almost mainstream, high school series, I seriously think that would invoke some changes in every other high school story. And perhaps make them all, not so cliché, and perhaps a bit thrilling. But of course Horikita being not romantically interested in anyone but her brother has been established since the start, so it makes sense to follow it through. You know, in the Japanese light novel world, that adds a lot to her personality. If you were to just take that away at this stage, her character would just be an angry old woman trapped in a young woman's body. Of course though, she does have her sweet side, which is shown every so often now so as to show her growth, but still nothing compared to how she acted cause of her brother. Like, I don't know man, but I think it's pretty obvious that Horikita has an unfounded kinky type, and Pseudo clearly doesn't cut that list. So anyways, failing back a bit, let's talk about why Pseudo proposed in the first place. Why now? The answer is, he was faced with a dilemma. A dilemma that I think is something I think every typical boy has been through at some point in time. It all starts when you for the first time realize that someone has a crush on you. You know, sometimes you get that thought in your head when it's not even true, but even just the thought is enough to throw any guy's mind in disarray. That is the moment where your loyalty towards your one-sided crush is put on test. On one side there is your beautiful unrequited love, but on the other hand there is a girl that you actually have chance with. This was the exact dilemma Pseudo was in. A dilemma that he was placed in by none other than our Ayano god. Cause he was the one who made the revelation to Pseudo that Ondra likes him. A revelation that shocked Pseudo to the core and also perhaps put him in a bit of disbelief. Cause certainly there are times where boys just say those things to each other. But then, Pseudo did take Ayano god's revelation to heart and then came up with a solution. A really smart solution, I think. Since Onodera liked Pseudo, Pseudo decided he didn't want to turn her down too early, so he first decided to once and for all clear things with Horikita. To see if he has some chance there before he closes the other window to the athletic swimmer girl. Now I want to word this properly, so as to not offend the 0.4% of the ladies that might watch this video. But I think that's a situation smartly handled. Especially for an anime character. Cause you don't see much game from fricking Yamada-kun, or any other anime character who just turns down every girl left and right before not even being sure about their own relation. Now, I think that's enough of their sorta scummy all boys talk, let's move on to the actual scummy thing the horny Koji is doing. First of all, there is no one who has more game than the horny Koji. He is catching them, left and right, girls and boys. But after getting in a relationship with Kei, I was like, he is not going to use his game any longer. He is not going to be able to implement that into his tool conversion tactics now that he was a girlfriend. But boy was I wrong. Horny Koji has set his game with Ichinos for more than half a year. And he clearly plans to do some advance on the territories, let me tell you that much. So if you don't remember in volume 11.5, on a particular rainy day, Ayonkoji made the sensational promise to Ichinos to have a personal meet-up a year from then on. Now that was done with many implications, plush with all the hints dropped in Ayano Koji's past monologues, it is clear that horny Koji has something big planned for Ichinos. Something that he has been planning for a year, perhaps. Now even though I knew that Ayano god got something planned for Ichinos, with the constant losses that she has been taking, I am gonna be honest, I was a bit worried about her just being cast aside as background character. Now with that, it seems more likely that in the future Ichinos would have a rather important role to play. You know, if it was any other girl that would have been an obstacle to the Kyoke relationship, I would have become a quick hater to that girl. But with Ichinos, it just can't be helped man. She is too pitiable. She is the kindest and honest to good character who is furthest away from getting any dubs possible. Like just knowing that Ayonkoji's plan is a silver of hope for a huge Ichinos W, brings me immense joy. Like even when Ayonkoji embraced her in the end of the volume, I was like, yeah, at least she is not gonna be so depressed and conflicted anymore. Although of course considering how good of a person Ichino's is, she is not going to be guilt-free. And speaking of someone else who should definitely feel guilty, Kushida is somehow falling for Ayonkoji. What the fuck? You know what, the idea is just too ridiculous for me to fathom. So let me just talk about the other things that happened in this volume before I come to terms with and vent about this ridiculous situation. So the main event in this volume was the school trip. This time, with no special exam added to it but rather an interesting theme.
If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, that implies exactly what you would think. A group of 8 students, 2 from each of the 4 class, will be paired up and brave through the dangerous bonding exercises such as the life-ending edgy pillow fighting. You know what I am talking about. You two must have played the thrilling game of trying to kill each other with spurt-infused fearsome pillow throwing technique from back when you were in high school. You know, moves like darkness ball or ravenous serpent pillow throw. But let's backtrack a bit to understand why Ryuan and the demon-looking man are playing such a relatable game. See, in this school trip to Hokkaido, Ayonkoji was grouped with Kushida, Ryuan, Kido from Class A Sakura-esque but smarter chick also from Class A, and 3 other side characters. Now Ryuan's class and Sakyongi's class is gearing up for a big clash against one another, plus considering Ryuan's personality on top of that, Kido from Class A hates Ryuan. Loathes him, and Ryuan being Ryuan, continues to antagonize Kido and in process challenges him to a duel of pillow fight to assert absolute dominance. Just as you would expect from the most fearsome delinquent of the school. See, there is more context behind this scene, but I don't really think it's needed. Although one important thing to note here is that the pillow that gets destroyed in this cruel and fierce battle is from our one and only Kiyotaka, who is already casually dropped in his monologue about how he feels discomfort having to share his sleeping place with other people for the duration of his trip. Now I repeat with more details, Kiyotaka Ayonkoji casually mentions in his monologue about how he feels discomfort by having to increasingly share his precious bedtime on school trips. And also in his relationship with Kei. So, I suppose you best believe that horny Koji is reading that book of love real hard. Yeah, they are fricking. Feels a bit weird just dropping implications for the past couple of volume reviews, not gonna lie. Anyways, let's talk about the school trip in a bit more detail. See, this volume didn't have any special exam, and it was because of that many of the events that took place in this volume are scattered around like a .5 novel. There is no big picture that connects all the things that happen in this volume or perhaps even shed some light on the importance of such events. Like Sakyongi taking a fall on her butt yet again and then being helped by a feisty middle-aged student from Ryuan's class. Will this event be important? Or will it just be glossed over and forgotten about until year 3? Who knows, it's too early to tell. There is also the event where we see Ayonkoji's masterful ability to learn something really fast. My man went from an amateur to almost a pro with a day of practicing skiing. Managed to stop the fierce competition between Kido and Ryuan from taking a turn for the worse. Impressive but still pretty tribal .5 volume stuff. But although if I were to talk about the most eventful and important thing that's happened in this volume, it would be something that happened before the start of the school trip. See, it even comes out of something really trivial, just a seemingly normal conversation where Ayonkoji managed to detect an important slip-up and arrive to some really interesting conclusion. So here is where it began. Aikika called for Ayonkoji to have a conversation with him. And now I do admit, I did think Aikika would no longer be much part of the future volume, not only because she was sort of involved when Yagami was getting expelled, but mostly cause I thought that the author might be just getting done with White Room student thing and focus on something more interesting and less overhyped. That is not the case though. Aikika is going to be ever present as the known White Room student character, I suppose. Circling back to my point, Aikika calls for Ayonkoji to meet up with her, but then Nanase tags along cause she wants to make sure that Aikika doesn't do anything shady. After all, Nanase is a good tool that wants to do whatever she can to protect a Yano god, right? Well, turns out no. A Yano god's tool conversion ceremony with Nanase is turning out to be something pre-planned by Nanase. Or more like the people that are behind her. See, Ayonkoji notices a slight slip-up in his conversation with Nanase where the overzealous tool somehow doesn't seem to care much about what happens to him on his school trip. That slight slip-up, that leaves Nanase scrambling for excuses, leads Ayonkoji to speak up about his possible conjectures. About how maybe the plan was never to have Tsukishiro expel him. Nor was it to have the 2 White Room student to expel him. But the plan was something else all along. Honestly, I am not sure what the actual plan might be if it isn't to get a Yonkoji expelled. But what I can tell is that, the story of the poor butter and his pitiful son, both told to be dead, and the son's one-sided lover Nanase coming to battle with a Yonkoji, might all just be a ploy. That's right, no fired butler, no dead son. Nothing. Perhaps it was all a trick to make him accept his enemy-turned-tool Nanase, so that she can help achieve the true secret objective which is still not made clear. But all in all, Nanase is working with someone to backstab a Yonkoji. Has been from the start. Perhaps even with the help of her crush, the so-called deceased son of a butler. See, now I am gonna be honest, Nanase being found out as a secret little spy is all cool and all, but if I don't get a really good explanation in the future volume then this shit is going to have more plot holes than Area 51. So for now I am going to believe in the gospel of a Yano god and praise him for exposing the truth of the tool pretender, Nanase. Why? How? Who? I better find out in the future volumes. Now let's slip knack into something trivial, the Sakura-esque chick from Class A, Yamamura. Yamamura has a weak presence cause she is shy and introverted and also definitely a spy for Sakyongi. But more than that, she is lonely and socially inept. And also lacking in gloves. She has plenty of events in this volume, what with her being harassed by delinquents from other school, which leads to Ryuan and Kido tag teaming to beat them down. And a Yonkoji pushing her into a snow fight. Things like that happen, and I think her character is still trivial cause she is nothing new to the light novel. It's not like we haven't seen a Yonkoji being nice to a lonely low self-esteem girl before. If we are to talk about the cover of the volume, then I am pretty sure it's hinting towards a future relationship between Ishizaki and Nishino which would be a pretty darn good couple not gonna lie. But speaking of coupling, Horikita, Kushida and Ibuki. The three-person with the weirdest relationship in code are continuing on with their shenanigans. Like, Kushida and Horikita doing an endurance competition to see who would leave the hot spring first. Or Horikita and Ibuki competing in the snow fight, where Ibuki frankly got her win in a long while. See, I am sure the hot spring bath and the snow fight seem very interesting, but it really wasn't. All the takeaway to be taken from the hot spring was that Kushida doesn't want to date in school cause school relationship are bound to break. Of course she most likely lied to avoid the question of relationship, but I think it might have resonated a bit with Ichinos. And one other thing, for some reason everyone on school knows that Ichinos has a crush on a Yonkoji. I don't know if that's a good thing or not because then Kei has much larger chance of catching them red-handed. Like, with what happened in the last of the volume, I think a Yonkoji has something big planned for Ichinos 3 months from now, when the promised day of 1 year comes around. But because of Ichinos falling before reaching that threshold he has to take actions right now. Which is pretty much to sneak behind Kei's back to provide bodywork to Ichinos. Now obviously, Horny Koji is still our protagonist so I don't want him to get caught. Although, you know what the great thing about this is? It's that now Nagumo is not going to be able to fool Ichinos any longer. If a Yonkoji grows closer to Ichinos behind Kei's back, as long as it keeps Ichinos away from Nagumo's hands, I am happy. Now let's talk a bit about Horikita and the class. See, Horikita is constantly swimming in wind these days. The class is doing good, she is the undoubted leader. She says she wants to experience falling in love naturally while keeping Kushida really close by her side. Life seems set for her. Even the class teacher, Chabashira, aside from her occasional fan service talks about how lucky her class is. With a Yonkoji being the joker of the cards. All is set for Horikita and Chabashira sensei to move towards class A with their expected support from a Yonkoji, the strongest card in the class. Now with all that said, I can't wait until a Yonkoji switches class. I think it might happen at the time he has promised to meet Ichinos, or at the next special exam. I can't wait to see Horikita and Chabashira to lose their shit and be like, wait. What happened? Plus now that Kushida has fallen for a Yonkoji, I can't wait for a Yonkoji to just be her ultimate enemy. That would be a swell. But enough about hyping my imagination and let's talk about the mysterious prologue from Kanzaki. Where it is revealed that he knew about the Yonkoji from before the school. Now if that turned out to be connected to the White Room, I think people would have lost their shit. Even the anime only would talk about the Kanzaki being a White Room student foreshadowing. But that isn't the case. Kanzaki is just a rich kid who is in a similar boat with Sakyongi where he has met a Yonkoji's dad before. And it's also revealed that Kanzaki and Sakyongi are sort of childhood friend who are not really that close just like the real type childhood friends. Anyways, the main thing is that Kanzaki with Sakyongi's prompting realizes that a Yonkoji is son of that Ayanokoji and that makes all his abilities really credible. Turns out Kanzaki's father is in the Yonkoji sensei fandom. And you know who else is in the fandom? Ishigami. Yeah, the first year student who has been mentioned here and there, and apparently likes to call Yonkoji randomly. But as it turns out Shiver String Ishigami might be he is not looking for any fight with a Yonkoji, so being the peaceful Hana Yonkoji doesn't bother much either. Sakyongi is gonna keep an eye on him though, and also work towards the big clash with Ryuan. And with that I think, I am done talking. Almost. I do want to curse out the situation with a Yonkoji and Kushida. It's like, yes she recognized he is superb a minute ago and then falls for him when he talks about his kinky habit to talk with mentally deranged people. Come on man, what the fuck?